First of all, we saw that animals need shelter. Shelter, of course, is a place where an animal can be safe. This looks like a shelter, it looks like a tree, right? But inside the tree is a narrow space where an animal can use it as its home. Maybe a wolf or a fox can live in there. I don't know about a bear. A bear is really big, so maybe this is a little small for a bear. But this could be a good shelter for an animal to live in. Animals need shelter because it rains, it gets cold. They need some type of home. So a shelter is like a home. And we all need a home, don't we? We all need some place to be safe, where an animal can be safe. Okay, let's take a look at another thing. Another thing is a nest. A nest is kind of like a shelter too. A nest is a place where birds live. So a nest, as you can see in the tree here, birds make their homes high up in trees, and it's a bird's shelter. So a bird will use this, a nest. This is also a bird's shelter. It is basically their home. It protects them, it keeps them safe from animals walking around on the ground, right? So mama bird can take care of her baby birds safely in a nest, and that's their shelter. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, another thing that all animals need to grow is oxygen. We need to breathe, right? And we breathe oxygen. Oxygen is a gas that is necessary for people and animals to live. We need oxygen to breathe. Oxygen has no color. We can't see it. It's all around us. In the room here, in the room where you are, there's oxygen in the air. You can't see it. You can feel it. If you go like this really quickly, you can feel the air, and in the air is oxygen that we need to breathe. Our bodies need oxygen. If we're diving, for example, underwater, how do we get oxygen? Well, we need to breathe through the equipment. We need to breathe. Right? If we breathe, that means to take in oxygen. So even if we're underwater and we're scuba diving, right? We have equipment that gives us oxygen so we can breathe underwater. We're not fish, right? We don't have gills, but we can use equipment to go underwater and swim around. Looks like fun. If you have a chance, try that out. Try out scuba diving. Okay. Next, we have another verb, to hatch. Now, some animals hatch. To hatch means to come out of the egg. Like this crocodile or alligator here is coming outside of the egg. It's hatching. Not all animals hatch. Hatch means to come out of an egg. Did you come out of an egg? No, you didn't come out of an egg. Mammals are born without eggs. We're born live. We don't have eggs when we come out of our mother's bodies, right? We don't have eggs. But some animals, like reptiles, birds, and some fish, they will come out of eggs. They need to hatch. Okay? So to hatch. Another verb is to store. Animals, some animals, will store things. What will they store? Store means to keep something for future use. You've probably seen in the movies the squirrel, right? The squirrel running around, and the squirrel is running after nuts, right? N-U-T-S. So squirrels will store nuts, and squirrels are kind of, the little animals, the little furry animals with the big tail. They will go and they will take nuts, and they won't eat them right away. They'll put them in their shelter, in their home. They will store them for when it's cold and when the winter there's no food. So they store, they keep something for future use. They keep it for later. Okay, so that's to store. Another verb is to protect. Some animals, of course, all animals need protection, right? Some animals have built-in protection. Built-in, they have it as part of their bodies. Built-in protection. Built-in protection. This shell is protecting the turtle. Tuck, 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 right? It's very hard, and the turtle will not be harmed because the shell protects the turtle. Protect, of course, means to cover and to make something safe. So if you look at this turtle, kind of an interesting character, he's very safe inside of his shell. He is protected. Okay, let's move on. Extinct. If an animal is extinct, it is no longer in existence. But think about that. If all the animals of the same type are gone, they all die, then they are extinct. What animals can you think of that have gone extinct? Some very famous animals. If you think of dinosaurs, D-I-N-O-S-A-U-R-S, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, this is a dinosaur. There are no more dinosaurs in the world. They are all extinct. They are no longer in existence. They've all died. So we can say dinosaurs are extinct. Okay?
American Textbook Reading. Grade 1. Science. Book 2. Lesson 1. What animals need to grow? Shelter. A shelter is a place where an animal can be safe. Nest. A nest is a place where birds live. Oxygen. Oxygen is a gas that is necessary for people and animals to live. Oxygen has no color. Breathe. Breathe means to take in oxygen. Hatch. Hatch means to come out of an egg. Store. Store means to keep something for future use. Protect. Protect means to cover and make something safe. Extinct. If an animal is extinct, it is no longer in existence.
First, let's look at living things. What are living things? Living things need water, air, and food to live. Living things need three things to live. They need water, air, and food. Animals and plants are living things. That's what living things need, okay? As opposed to non-living things. Non, of course, means not. Not living. Not living means that they're not alive, right? It means non-living things do not need water, air, or food. Rocks and water are examples of non-living things. They're not alive, right? They don't have bodies, right? They don't have parts that move, right? These are other examples of non-living things. A football, a basketball, a baseball. Those things are not alive, right? They don't live. They don't breathe. They don't reproduce. They are not living things. They are non-living things. All things, whether they're living or not living, they live in a place. What do we call that place? We call that place the environment. The environment. This is the place where a living thing lives. But of course, it's also the place where you can find many non-living things too. But an environment, usually we talk about, when we talk about living things, we talk about their environment and the relationship between living things and the environment. Survive means to continue living. Living things, of course, one of their main goals is to continue to survive, to continue to live. continue living, to keep living, stay alive. They, of course, want to stay alive. So living things want to survive. A living thing needs water, air, and food to survive. If they don't have water, no air, no food, they cannot survive, right? In that case, they die, okay? If all those types of things die, then they are no longer, they go extinct. Look at this flower right here. This flower is growing up. It needs water, air, and food in order to survive. If you take away water, the flower will die. No air, the flower will die. No food, and the flower will die. So all living things need to survive. They need these things in order to keep living, to continue living. To grow. Of course, all living things grow. That's another thing about living things. Not only do they survive, they need to survive, they also need to grow. Living things change from very small babies to adults to very old, and then they die. This is what happens to living things. It's the cycle of life, right? The cycle of life. All living things grow through the cycle of life. Grow means to get bigger. That's the basic word, right? To grow, to get bigger. If you have food and water, you will grow, right? Food, water, and time, you will get bigger, right? All living things. This is a good example here. We can see different stages of the development of this plant. This plant, as it grows, it gets larger. Let's take a look at these plants here that are planted in this pot here. Let's take a look at how they grow. Wow, look at that. They're growing very quickly. Of course, this is a trick photography. This video was taken over a long period of time, but the plants are growing. They are getting bigger, They are growing in size. And of course, they're growing in age too. They are getting older. So when things grow, they get older. When you grow, you get older. So things grow, they get bigger, they also get older. And this is part of the cycle of life. Okay, let's talk about non-living things. A rock is an example of a non-living thing. A rock is a small and hard non-living thing. This, for example, is a rock. Now it says small, but of course some rocks can be big, right? But this little rock here that you can pick up off the ground, it's small, it's hard, right? It's very tough, and it does not live. This rock, it doesn't need water. It doesn't need food. It's not going to grow, right? It's not going to get bigger by itself if you give it food and water. That's crazy, right? So the rock will stay the same unless you hit it, unless water changes it somehow. But usually by itself, it will not grow. It will not change by itself. Now, nature, right? Nature is where all the things exist. Nature is the world of living and non-living things. So living and non-living things exist in nature. When you go out into nature, right, you have grass, you have trees, you have air, you have clouds, you have sunlight. Some of those things are living, some of those things are not living, non-living. But these all exist in nature. Nature is also the outside world. Safe. We have safe here. Safe is something is safe. There is no danger. And what this image is, this is an image of a turtle's shell. A turtle used to live here. It was safe when it was alive. It died, hopefully of old age, right? The shell kept it safe, but all things die. All things grow, they get bigger. Eventually, all things will die. That's part of the life cycle. So this shell, while the turtle was alive during its life, it protected the turtle. It kept it safe. To keep something safe. We can say this shell kept the turtle safe. If something is safe, there is no danger. He's safe. Whew, no danger. Don't worry. Okay, we've talked about living things and non-living things. Here we have another word, alive. Alive is associated with living things. Being alive means to be living, not dead. Okay, so here we see this fish. This fish is alive. It's moving around. Looks like it's breathing. So it is alive. But this fish will grow older. It has a cycle of life. All living things have the cycle of life. Someday this fish will die. And then when it dies, it will not be alive. So alive is the opposite of dead. These words are opposite. Alive, opposite, dead. And living things go through this. Living things are either alive or they are dead. Okay?
Lesson 2. Living things versus non-living things. Living things. Living things need water, air, and food to live. Animals and plants are living things. Non-living things. Non-living things do not need water, air, and food. Rocks and water are non-living things. Environment. An environment is the place where a living thing lives. Survive. Survive means to continue living. A living thing needs water, air, and food to survive. Grow. Grow means to get bigger. If you have food and water, you will grow. Rock. A rock is a small and hard, non-living thing. Nature. Nature is the world of living and non-living things. Safe. If something is safe, there is no danger. Alive. Being alive means living, not dead.
Let's take a look. Of course, adaptation I talked about, and adaptation is a body part or behavior that helps a living thing meet its needs. So we have a body part or a behavior that the animal will change as part of its body in order to survive or to meet its needs. If we take a look at a giraffe, giraffes grew very long necks over a very long time, right? This is how their bodies have changed in order to meet their needs. Of course, animals need food. We talked about that before. So animals, to change to their environment, they will grow different body parts, very interesting body parts, in order to adapt or change to their environment. Trees that have very high branches, how can they get the food? They can grow a long neck, and that's what a giraffe did here. So that's an adaptation. Camouflage is another adaptation that animals will use. Look at this cute little puppy. It's probably not a puppy that you want in your house. It's a baby wolf, right? You don't want wolves in your house, right? But it's kind of cute when they're babies. Camouflage is a color or shape that helps an animal hide. You can see that this animal here has white fur. It's in the cold snow, so it blends in. It blends in to the background, right? It's hard to see. Let's take a look at a video. We have a video. Here's Mama Wolf, right? She's looking for her baby. He's on the other slide, okay? Let's take a look at the video. We can see that the very beautiful wolf here, right? And this wolf lives way up north in the Arctic. And there's a lot of snow in the Arctic. Now, if this wolf was brown or gray or black, other animals would be able to see it very well. And here's Mama Wolf coming to say hello, right? So other animals could see it very well if they were different colors. But because they are white, because they have camouflage into the background, these wolves can come close to other animals that they eat more easily, right? They want to hide in the background. They don't want other animals to see them because the other animals will run away. They want to catch the other animals. So their body fur is white to blend in to the surrounding snow. They're using camouflage to do that. And of course, you know, if you see wolves, some wolves will change the color of their fur. In the spring or summer, they'll be brown, and in the winter, their coat, their fur changes to white. So some animals will change, will adapt with the changing seasons. So that's very interesting. Now, another thing that we can talk about animals and adaptation, of course, all animals need food, right? There's two kinds of food sources, other animals or plants. Now, some animals have developed, they have changed their bodies so that they only eat other animals. We call those animals carnivores. A carnivore is an animal that only eats meat. So a carnivore only eats meat. A carnivore is at the top of the food chain. That's an interesting one. Food chain. What is a food chain? If you think about it, plants would be very at the bottom. Plants are at the bottom here. What eats plants? Well, deer can eat plants, right? Deer will eat plants. But what eats deer? Wolves will eat deers. Wolves. Okay? So this is a very simple food chain. What eats wolves? Nothing eats wolves, right? Until they die, of course. But nothing hunts wolves. That would be very dangerous, right? Wolves hunt other animals. So this is a very simple food chain. The bottom of the food chain is plants. Deers eat plants, wolves eat deer. Wolves are at the top of the food chain. Wolves eat other animals. They are carnivores. Just like a bear is a carnivore, it eats other animals. It's eating a fish here. What eats a bear? Nothing eats a bear, right? The bears just grow old and die. So bears are also at the top of the food chain. And that's what we mean when we talk about the food chain. You have the bottom and then you have the top. If something eats something else, it's not at the top. If nothing eats it, then it is at the top of the food chain. Okay. Herbivore, an herbivore is another type of animal, right? This type of animal only eats plants. An herbivore is an animal that only eats plants, like this cute little rabbit here. And a rabbit is an herbivore. Now think about what I just told you about the food chain, right? We have plants at the bottom, then we have a rabbit that eats the plants. Does anything eat the rabbit? Yes, unfortunately. Sorry, cute rabbit. Wolves will eat rabbits. Eagles, big birds, will eat rabbits. Foxes will eat rabbits. So rabbits are not at the top of the food chain. They're in the middle of the food chain, right? They eat plants, but something will eat the rabbit. So rabbits are not at the top of the food chain. They're in the middle somewhere. Okay. Wild. Being wild means living or growing in natural conditions, right? So these are wild animals. When we think about wild animals, we're not talking about pets, right? Or animals that are in zoos. Pets are animals that we keep in our homes. They are not wild animals. Your dog is not wild. If you go to the zoo and see a bear in a cage, it's not in the wild, right? It's in a zoo. It's in captivity. But in the wild means living or growing in natural conditions. No man-made surroundings, right? They're not living in homes. They're not living in zoos. They're not living in cages. They're out in nature. In natural conditions, they are out in nature. Out in nature. Okay? So that is the quality or the essence of being wild. Wild animals. Okay. Spiny is an adjective that we can talk about animals. This is another type of adaptation, and this is a very cute little animal here, isn't it? This is a puffer fish. And if you go scuba diving, you can see them. They look really cute. They've got these really big eyes and a small mouth, right? They're very cute little guys. Usually they don't look like this. Usually they look like a fish. But they're kind of fat fish. But if they get scared, they blow up. And all these little spines that are normally flat on their bodies, they start to stick up. If you touch that, ow, right? It's like touching a bunch of pins and needles. And that is very important. Spiny. So we can say it's spiny. It's hard to touch it, right? It's like you're touching pins and needles. Spiny means having sharp points like needles. So that's obviously a very good adaptation for this fish. This fish will protect itself by that. Nobody wants to touch this fish because it could hurt, right? Let's take a look at a video of this fish here. Now this is a different type of fish. This is called a lionfish, and this is a very poisonous fish. You do not want to touch this fish. You see, it has many spines, just like the puffer fish. It has many spines sticking up from its body. It doesn't blow itself up. These spines are always there. If you accidentally touch this fish, you will get some poison in your skin, and it won't kill you, but it will hurt a lot, and it will really ruin your vacation. You do not want to get near these fish. And these fish are very slow moving. So you got to be careful of these fish. Okay. Now we have shape. Animals, when they adapt to their wild surroundings, they will have different shapes. And we can see a lot of different shapes even if we just look at shells, right? Some type of animals in the ocean will use shells for their body to protect them, and they have lots of different shapes according to what their needs are. Shape is the outer form of something, the outer form. So we have a starship, a starfish. We have a starfish that looks like a star shape. We have a circular cone or circular shells. Of course, some hermit crabs will live in there. Of course, snails will live in there first. Then a hermit crab will come by and take that as its home. So we have lots of different shapes for different types of animals that live in the ocean, but also all types of animals have different shapes.
Lesson 3. Adaptations for survival. Adaptation. An adaptation is a body part or a behavior that helps a living thing meet its needs. Camouflage. Camouflage is the color or shape that helps an animal hide. Carnivore. A carnivore is an animal that only eats meat. A carnivore is at the top of the food chain. Herbivore. An herbivore is an animal that only eats plants. A rabbit is an herbivore. Wild. Being wild means living or growing in natural conditions. Spiny. Spiny means having sharp points like needles. Shape. Shape is the outer form of something.
We can also say infant. Infant and baby mean the same thing. So an infant is a baby. An infant cannot walk or talk. Ah, he's so cute, right? Hello, hello. Okay, sorry. But there's a little infant, right? Little baby. They're newborn, right? That's another expression we can use. Newborn. Newborn. They were just born. They have just been born. They have just come into the world. They're new in the world. They're very young, right? Probably under a year old, or maybe a little bit older than a year. By the way, I just said under a year old. Don't be confused, that's American age, right? When infants are born, we say they are 1 day old, right? They start their age at the moment that they are born in American culture. I know it's different for Korean culture, right? They might be already a year old by the time they were just a few days old in American culture. So infants, we say they're like 0 to 1 year old, right? You can be 0 years old. Isn't that crazy? Okay, but in American culture, you can be 0 years old. Let's take a look at the next stage. The next stage is the toddler stage. The toddler. If you think about the word toddler, it's like, moving around like this. And that's exactly what toddler is talking about. A toddler is a very young child. A toddler learns to walk and talk. So an infant can't walk or talk, right? But at the stage where an infant starts, it grows, right? After about 1 to 3 years old, then we say that child is a toddler. 1 to 3 years old. Remember, this is American age. 1 to 3 years old. A toddler learns to walk and talk. So toddler, like I said, is kind of like moving around like this. They don't have good balance. They need some help maybe to walk. They're toddlers. And they're at the same time that they're walking, they're also learning to talk. So they're making baby sounds like ga, goo, ga, goo, ga, goo, ga, right? It's very interesting to listen to toddlers talking, right? They're putting sounds together. They're starting to learn how to talk as well as how to walk. In this stage, we say that they are toddlers. In the next stage, okay, after 3 years old, so we got from 4 to 12 years old, again in American age, we say that they are children, they're a child. A child is a very young person who is no longer a baby. These kids are not baby. By the way, I also used kid, which is also a very common informal way. A kid, he or she is just a kid. They're kids. These are kids. They are no longer babies, but they're not yet a teen. Teen is the next stage. We'll look at that in a minute. A child goes to school. So children start school, usually with kindergarten. Then they go to elementary school, 1st grade to 6th grade. So a child starts to go to school. They start to go to classrooms and learn lessons in a classroom. And these are child. That's what we mean as a child, usually 4 to 12 years old. So you could say, what about you guys? Are you a child or are you a teen? Teen is the next step in the life cycle of human beings. A teen, if you think about it, it's very logical. It's from the ages of 13 to 19. So if a child or a person is from 13 to 19, we call them a teen. Of course, 13, if you look at the words in English, 13, 14. It's very easy to figure out, right? 13, 14, 15, 16. These are teens. We also refer to these people as teenagers. That's also a very common word that we use. Teen, and we put agers on the end. Teenagers. They are teenagers, or short, they are teens. And these is a group of cool-looking teenagers, right? Okay. A teen is a person between the ages of 13 and 19. We have that right there. Teens are young adults. So actually, when you get around 18, 19, some people consider 18-year-olds, they're adults. They can vote. They can vote for leaders in a country. So, getting around 18, 19, some people consider those people adults, right? But they're still teens because they're still in the teen years, 18, 19. Okay, so after teen, what's the next stage after teen? What do you think? That would be an adult. Adults are fully grown people. They're fully grown. Hopefully they're fully grown mentally as well as physically. But physically, they're fully grown. These people are all adults. Of course, they're different ages. This man here is middle-aged. Middle-aged. You may know him. He's a famous actor, right? So he's middle-aged. He's the oldest adult in this group. He's middle-aged. The other people are younger, right? They could be in their 20s or in their 30s. But middle-aged starts at about 40s. Right? 40s and onwards, between 40 and 50, 60, but they're middle-aged. So an adult is a fully grown person, and this is the last stage in the human life cycle, right? Adult. After, of course, adult, there's lots of different ages in adults, right? It goes from 20 years old. How long do people live? Usually, normally, people live into their 70s. Sometimes in the news, you can hear about people who are 100 or more years old. That's really old, right? Of course, after adults, part of adults are senior citizens. These are the elderly citizens. Senior citizens, very old adults. Probably after 60 years old, 60s, 70s, 80s. They are senior citizens. So adults have some breakdowns too. Young adult, middle-aged, and senior citizens. These are different stages in the adult phase of the life cycle of people. Okay, let's move on. Now, it's very important in the human life cycle. In order for us to be healthy during the stages of our life, we need to do certain things. One of the things we need to do is sleep. Sleep means to rest your body and mind with your eyes closed. So this little girl is asleep. She's at peace. When we talk about sleep, about half of our life is spent sleeping. It sounds like a waste, but we need to sleep. We need sleep in order to rest our body, to rest our mind, to develop our body, and to develop our mind. So we need sleep. Sleep is a very important part of our life cycle. We also should exercise. There's a saying in English, use it or lose it. What does that mean? That means you should use your body. Exercise makes your body strong. Use your body. Make your body strong or lose it. In other words, you lose your body will become weak and you will have bad health. And it could cause you serious health problems. So use your body or lose it. That's interesting. When people say you should exercise, use your body or lose your body, right? Use your body. Make it strong. Exercise like this girl is doing. Make your body strong. That's very important, of course, for you to have a healthy life cycle. Also during our life cycle really is a continual process of learning. We start learning right away when we're infants, when we're babies, right? And then toddlers learn to walk, they learn to talk. Children go to school, they learn in school. Teenagers go to high school. So do adults continue to learn? You bet, of course adults continue to learn. All of life is a learning experience. To learn is when you study, you learn things. When you study books, when you study in class. Right now, you're studying with me. I'm happy to help you. But we are studying, we are learning things. But even when we're just living, when we're on the job, when we're doing our job, when we're meeting other people, we're also learning many things. So we really never stop learning. And that's important. Never stop learning. Always keep an open mind. Look around you and learn from your experiences. And you will never stop learning. Learning is a very important part, of course, of our life cycle as people.
Lesson 4. The human life cycle. Infant. An infant is a baby. An infant cannot walk or talk. Toddler. A toddler is a very young child. A toddler learns to walk and talk. Child. A child is a very young person who is no longer a baby but not yet a teen. A child goes to school. Teen. A teen is a person between the ages of 13 and 19. Teens are young adults. Adult. An adult is a fully grown person. Sleep. Sleep means to rest your body and mind with your eyes closed. Exercise. Exercise makes your body strong. Learn. When you study, you learn things.
What is weather? Weather is the conditions of the air outside relating to rain, snow, heat, cold, etc. So that's an important thing. Here we have rain, snow. These two are talking about the conditions. What is happening outside? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it windy? Is it sunny? What's happening outside? But weather also talks about the temperature, heat and cold. What is the temperature? Is it hot outside? Is it warm outside? Is it cold outside? So we're talking about two basic things about weather. One is the conditions, the other is the temperature. So one thing we're talking about are conditions. For example, rain, snow, sunny, conditions. We're also talking about the temperature. Temperature. That's a long word. Temperature. As you can see, this is a weather forecaster, and she's talking about the different weather conditions in different parts of the country. Looks like this is Britain, okay? England. Okay, so this is weather, and she's a weather forecaster, okay? On the television, you can see what the weather is going to be like by looking at the weather forecast. What is the weather forecast? Okay, what's the weather forecast? What will the weather be like tomorrow, next week, in the future? Okay, let's move on. What kinds of weather are there? Of course, there's sunny weather. When we go to the beach and we play in the ocean, we hope that it's sunny. You have to be careful with sunny weather, though, because sunny means with a lot of sunlight, but a lot of sunlight means your skin can get sunburned. So be careful if you're out on a sunny day. Wear some sunscreen. Let's take a look at a video of a sunny day. Now, of course, these two girls are having a great time in the ocean, looks like. We can see the sunlight. If you look at the waves, you can see all the light reflecting from the sun. This is a very sunny day. Now these girls have to be careful, right? They're getting wet. They could get sunburned. They should put sunscreen on their skin so that they don't get sunburned on a very sunny day. These girls look like they're having a lot of fun, doesn't it? Looks like a good thing to do. Go down the ocean and play in the water. Hopefully, if you do this, you will do this on a sunny day. But again, be careful. Wear sunscreen. Protect yourself from the sun. If you don't have to worry too much about the sun, you know, sometimes the sky is covered with clouds. And then we say it's a cloudy day. A cloudy. Cloudy means to be covered with a lot of clouds. So this girl, she's, it's still a nice day, right? There's still some sun, but there's also some clouds in the sky. So it's a cloudy day. By the way, you also have to be careful in a cloudy day not getting too much sun, because you can still get sunburnt on a cloudy day, so be careful. But anyway, cloudy day is when clouds are covering most or part of the sky. It's a cloudy day. Let's take a look. Wow. In this video, we can see a really cloudy day, and this is really a good video for showing clouds. See how the clouds change as they're moving. It's not just a cloudy day, it's also a windy day, because the wind is moving these clouds very quickly. And you can see that up in the mountains. When you're higher up, you get closer to the clouds, you can see them moving much more quickly. And this is a very good example of very dark clouds moving across. Of course, these dark clouds have a lot of moisture in them. It looks like these are rain clouds. So probably it will rain if there's a lot of these clouds and they get together, and it could rain. But of course here we can see clear weather also. So these clouds might just be moving through. So it's cloudy, but maybe if they move through and there's no more clouds, then it will become clear. But this is a very windy and cloudy day. Okay, I just talked about windy. We saw in the previous video how the wind is moving the clouds very quickly. Windy, of course, means with a lot of wind. If there's a lot of wind, there's a lot of movement of the air. The air is moving very quickly from one part of the earth to another part of the earth. Okay? And we have very windy days. Sometimes we can use the wind for fun if we want to fly a kite, and that's a lot of fun. These girls are flying a kite. Okay, so this here is a kite, and on a windy day, you can fly a kite very well. Let's take a look of this boy here. Okay, look at him. Look at how hard he's pulling on that string, because it's a really, really windy day. That wind is really pulling that kite. Looks like somebody else, we can't see that person, but they're down here somewhere. They have another kite up there. But that's really strong. That boy was really holding on to that rope because it's a very, very windy day. We can say the wind is very strong, okay? It's a very windy day means there's strong winds, okay? Now, another type of weather that you may like, maybe you don't like. Personally, I don't like rainy days, right? If it's rainy, it means there's a lot of rain coming down, having a lot of rain. Of course, on a rainy day, you should bring an umbrella with you. Now, we can talk again about light rain. There is light rain. That's when just a little bit of rain is coming down. But when a lot of rain comes down, like in the summertime, we say that is heavy rain. Heavy rain. Another way you can say it, how is it raining a lot? And you can say it's not raining a lot, that's light rain, or yes, it is raining a lot. It's heavy rain. Okay, let's take a look at a video of rain. This girl is walking along. Now, is it heavy rain or light rain? What do you think? It looks to me like it's heavy rain. Look at all the water. Of course, kids, you know, they like to walk in the water. Moms don't like that. But, you know, she was walking through the puddle of the rain, all the rain coming down. There's so much rain, it's making a little stream. And it's a lot of rain. She doesn't seem to be bothered by the rain, right? She's having fun. Most kids have fun walking in the rain, in the puddles. But this is heavy rain. A lot of rain is coming down. A lot of rain is coming down. It's heavy rain. Okay. Now, in the wintertime, instead of rain, what comes down? Snow. So in that case, we can say it is snowy. It is snowy. Snowy means to be covered with snow. So if we look at this hill, right, and we look at the trees, we can say, it's a snowy day. It's a snowy day. That means that there's a lot of snow out. Now, of course, we see this in winter. Now, snow can be fun. These people are having fun in the snow. They're sledding. But snow can also be kind of a bothersome thing, especially if you're driving, but you don't have to worry about that. You guys are going to go out and you're going to have fun in the snow, right? Here we have, wow, a lot of snow is coming down. The kids happy, right? Kids are happy when it's snowing or raining. They're not too bothered by it. Mom's like, hey, wait up for me, right? Okay, there's a lot of snow coming down. Just as with rain, we can say light snow or heavy snow. In this case, this is heavy snow. A lot of snow is coming down. It's really snowing. Okay, so we can see that there's a lot of snow here, and it's very heavy snow. Now, we have another situation in the weather. We've talked about rain, we've talked about snow, but sometimes you'll notice that the moisture, the water that's coming down from the sky, it's not really rain. It seems to be, a little bit more solid than water. But it's not really snow because it's a little wetter than snow usually is. It's kind of between snow and rain. We call that sleet. Sleet is a mix of rain and snow. Sleet, I really don't like sleet, right? Because it's wet, it's cold, and especially if you're driving or you're walking, it can be very bothersome, right? You really have to bundle up. You have to bundle up. That's a good expression. You have to bundle up means you have to wear a lot of protective clothes. You have to bundle up. It's two words. Bundle up, especially if you go out in the sleet. Wear a lot of warm clothes. Wear a hood. Bundle up. Because sleet is a mix of rain and snow. It's cold and it's wet. It's not good weather. Okay. When we talk about weather, we can use the word observe. When we look at the weather, we are observing weather. When weather forecasters, like that woman we saw at the very beginning on television, she's forecasting the weather, she's giving us a weather forecast, those people observe the weather. And they try to figure out what is the weather going to do. Observe means to see or watch something or somebody. This boy, right, he's observing these two big beetles. I think they're really toys. I don't think beetles are that big, okay? But he's observing these two insects very carefully. He's watching them very carefully. Okay, so to observe means to watch something, especially when we watch the weather, we observe the weather. And we kind of guess, what is it going to do today? Is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? Is it going to be sunny? We observe the weather and we make a judgment about the weather. Okay, our next word, last word, is wet. Wet. If you take a look at this boy here, he's kind of cute. He's soaking wet, right? He's in his pool here. There's water there. He got water all over his body. Wet means to be covered with water. He's covered with water. Now there's a couple of other things. You see, this water is dripping off of his body. We can say he is dripping wet. It's two words. So drip means the water is coming off, drip, drip, drip. The water is, he's got so much water on him, he's dripping wet. Now if you go out in the rain, you don't have an umbrella, you will get dripping wet. You can also say another thing. You are soaking wet. Soaking. Your mom gets angry if you come home and you are soaking wet because you were out in the rain or you were playing in the snow and you got so wet you come home and you're dripping water. Your mom says, oh, you are soaking wet, right? Get your clothes off. Get into a hot bath very quickly because it's not good for your health to be dripping wet or soaking wet if it's cold. He's okay. It's warm out. But if it's cold, that's not good for your health. Okay.
Lesson 5. Weather. Weather. Weather is the conditions of the air outside relating to rain, snow, heat, cold, etc. Sunny. Sunny means with a lot of sunlight. Cloudy. Cloudy means to be covered with a lot of clouds. Windy. Windy means with a lot of wind. Rainy. Rainy means having a lot of rain. Snowy. Snowy means to be covered with snow. Sleet. Sleet is a mix of rain and snow. Observe. Observe means to see or watch something or somebody. Wet. Wet means to be covered with water.
Okay, before we start to talk about what the measurements are, we need to look at what does measure mean. What does it mean to measure something? There's three things we can talk about. Measure means to find the size. Size is the first thing. Speed. Speed is the second thing. And or amount. Amount is the third thing of something using a tool. So measure means to find the size, the speed, or the amount of something using a tool. And this, of course, here, this thing right here is a tool. What is this tool doing? It's measuring the size of the apple. So size, when we talk about size, we can answer the question, how big is it? How big is it? How big is this apple? We're talking about the size. Speed, in this case, we're talking about how fast is it? So we use a different tool to find out how fast something is. So we want to know the speed. Here, the amount, when we talk about amount, in this case, we can ask how much is, how much is there? How much is there? What's the amount? Is there a lot or is there a little? How much is there? So three things. One, size. How big is it? Two, speed. How fast is it? Three, amount. How much is there? We use tools to find out the answers to these questions. Tools help us observe things. When we're observing weather, we are measuring the weather. So that's what it means to measure something. Now, when we measure things, one thing about the weather we can measure is the temperature. The temperature, right? So we can measure the temperature. Temperature is how warm or cool something is. Remember, I taught you that word in Unit 5. So if we take a look at this chart, right, we have two systems for measuring temperature. In Korea, we use Celsius. In North America, especially America, they use Fahrenheit. These are differences of temperatures. These relate. 95 degrees Fahrenheit is 35 degrees Celsius. Okay? So temperature is how warm or cool something is. Obviously, this is very warm. That's very hot, isn't it? If the weather is 35 degrees Celsius, whew, that's really hot. You're sweating a lot. But if the weather, for example, is 11 degrees Celsius, then that is very cold, right? So what's the temperature? How warm or cool something is. What do we use to measure the temperature? What is the tool we use to measure the temperature? We want to know how much of something is. What is the amount? What is the amount of temperature? We use a thermometer. Thermometer. Let's repeat that. Thermometer. A thermometer is a tool used to measure the temperature. How much warmth or how little warmth is there? What's the amount? In this case, wow, it's very hot. 40 degrees, right? 40 degrees is very hot. This thermometer tells us what the temperature is. If the thermometer swings over here, this, of course, is the needle. If the needle on the thermometer is over here, it's cool or cold. If it comes over here, it's hot. So the thermometer lets us know, it helps us measure the temperature, the amount of the temperature. Let's move on. Here we have a rain gauge. A rain gauge is another tool. This is a rain gauge. It's a tool. A rain gauge is a tool used to measure how much rain has fallen. How much? What are we talking about? How much? Are we talking about size? Are we talking about speed? Are we talking about amount? How much is there? We're talking about amount. How much rain came down? We use a rain gauge, and if this fills up, we can see, that's how much rain came down. It's a rain gauge. So we use that tool to determine how much of something there is. Rain gauge. In this case, how much rain came down. We also use another tool called a wind vane. Wind vane. This is an example of a wind vane. It looks like something you'll see on a farm. Farmers like this because there are many chickens or roosters on a farm. So this is a nice or common shape for American farms. We'll have this type of wind vane. A wind vane is a tool used to measure the direction the wind is blowing. Which way is the wind blowing? So we can also talk about direction, right? Here we have west, east, south, north. So depending on which way that rooster is pointing, we can see, the wind is blowing from the west going east, or the wind is coming from the north, it's going south. Where is the wind coming from? That's the direction of the wind. We can use a wind vane to measure that, to figure out where is the wind coming from. Now, that's what I just talked about, direction. What direction? Direction is the path of something. If the wind is coming from the west and going to the east, what is the direction of the wind? It's blowing in an easterly direction, in an easterly direction. What is the direction of the wind, right? What is the direction of this man? He's going away from us. He's not coming towards us. He's going away from us. Is he going to go right? Is he going to go left? What direction is he going in? What direction is something moving in? So this is direction, the path of something. Now, blow. We can also use the word blow. Blow means to move air through space. So the wind blows. If the wind is blowing, it is moving. We can measure the direction. We can measure the speed, right? So when we talk about blow, we're talking about moving air through some space. The wind is blowing, or the wind is not blowing. It is not blowing. It is not moving.
Lesson 6. Measuring the weather. Measure. Measure means to find the size, speed, or amount of something using a tool. Temperature. Temperature is how warm or cool something is. Thermometer. A thermometer is a tool used to measure the temperature. Rain gauge. A rain gauge is a tool used to measure how much rain has fallen. Wind vane. A wind vane is a tool used to measure the direction the wind is blowing. Direction. A direction is the path of something. Blow. Blow means to move air through space.
Let's take a look. First of all, what is a cycle? A cycle is a series of events being repeated many times. As we can see, if we're talking about water, this is looks like a very complicated diagram. But basically, we can start off with the ocean, right? It gets warm, the water moves up into the atmosphere, it cools down, it comes down as rain, it goes underground, and back into the ocean. A cycle is a process or a series of events that repeats over and over again. It's being repeated many times. Just like the human life cycle. Somebody goes from infant to adult, adults have babies, and the cycle starts again. These events happen over and over. They're repeated many times, a series of events. That's what a cycle is. Okay, let's look at one stage or one step of the water cycle, and we're talking about a cloud. A cloud is many drops of water that are together in the sky. So water rises up into the sky, they get together and they form clouds, and that's what a cloud is. When we look at a cloud, we're not looking at air, this is actually water. There's many little drops of water, but they're very light, and there's not so many of them. There's enough of them to make it look different, but in this cloud there is water. If the cloud gets heavy, a lot of water gets together, that rain will fall. Okay, rain will fall from a cloud. Now, how do clouds form into the sky? Well, water has to evaporate. Evaporate. Poor kid, where did all the water go, right? He wants to go swimming, but all the water's gone. Where did it go? It evaporated. Evaporate. Evaporate means to change from water to water vapor. So imagine this pool used to be filled with water, but over time, looks like it's been there for a long time. I wouldn't go swimming here anyway because it's very old and broken. But anyway, the water has evaporated. The water has changed from water, and we could say from water, from a liquid form. It's changed from liquid, this water here used to be liquid water, to water vapor. Vapor is a stage between liquid and gas, okay? So when the water gets hot, when the sun beats down, the water changes from liquid to a gas. From water vapor, it rises into the sky and it forms that cloud that we just saw on the previous slide. So evaporate means to change from water, liquid water, to water vapor, okay? Okay, so our next word is to condense. Let's take a look at the picture here. I want you to focus in on this red circle. Do you see the water drops on the leaf? These water drops have condensed. So before we just talked about evaporate. Evaporate is when the liquid water heats up, it expands, it moves away from each other, right? They expand into the air. That's evaporation. But now the opposite thing is happening. It's condensing. So if you see these drops on the leaf, right, it doesn't have to rain, really, for this to happen. Imagine in the cool morning, right, before it becomes day. It's very cold at night. The water, because of the temperature is very cold, the water drops in the air will get together. If you go out in the morning, you might say, wow, the ground's wet. The leaves of the trees are wet. The leaves on the grass are wet. It didn't rain last night. Why is it wet? Because the water in the air condensed, came together. Condense means to change from water vapor in the air, to water drops. And these water drops fall onto the ground, on the grass, on the leaves. And so even in the morning, if it didn't rain, you will find drops of water like we can see here in the picture. So condense and evaporate are opposites. Evaporate means to spread out, spread away from each other. Condense means to come together, gather, okay? And especially when we're talking about water and the stages of the water cycle. Now, we've talked about water vapor a little bit already. If you take a look at this picture, we can see a lake, a body of water here. We can also see, it looks like a small cloud, a strange cloud above the water. Well, clouds are basically water vapor. Water vapor is the water that goes up into the air as a gas. Here it's liquid. In the sky it's cloud. Well, from a liquid form, it begins to evaporate. It looks like it should be very hot in this picture. Let's take a look at the video to see a better picture. So what we can see here is the lake here. Also looks like it could be a swimming pool around the edges, but it's very warm water. And because it's warm, that temperature is making the water evaporate. It's changing the liquid water into a water vapor, and the water vapor is spreading out. The liquid, it's come together, right? But evaporate, it starts to go apart. It starts to spread out, and it becomes a gas. And this is what's happening. So this water vapor will rise up into the air, it will go into the sky, and it will condense a little bit and form clouds. And that's where we can see clouds or water vapor in the sky. Those are clouds. Okay, a drop. A drop is a small amount of water, a very small amount of water. Of course, when those clouds get together, if the water in those clouds get together a lot, they become heavier and they fall as single drops. So, of course, we have the word raindrop. Raindrop. So, a drop of rain is a raindrop. And you can see a very good picture. This is a small amount of water. It's a drop. It's a drop of water. Now, this may not be a raindrop because if you pour water into it, the water will, bounce back up. So that's not a raindrop, that's just a drop of water. But when water falls from the sky, from the clouds, then that is a raindrop.
Lesson 7. Clouds and Rain. Cycle. A cycle is a series of events being repeated many times. Cloud. A cloud is many drops of water that are together in the sky. Evaporate. Evaporate means to change from water to water vapor. Condense. Condense means to change from water vapor to water drops. Water vapor. Water vapor is the water that goes up into the air as a gas. Drop. A drop is a small amount of water.
Of course, let's begin with talking about what is a season. A season is any of the 4 main periods of the year. Periods. So when we talk about periods, right, we can talk about the year. Let me ask you this. How many months are in a year? That's right. There are 12 months, right? So if we break up those 12 months, we can break up those 12 months into 4 different periods. And if we do that, we have 3 months for each period. 3 months. 3 months for spring, 3 months for summer, 3 months for fall, and 3 months for winter. That adds up to 12 months. So we have 4 main periods of the year. How do these periods change? If you look at it, you can see there are different weather conditions in each of these 4 main periods. So we're breaking up the year, 12 months, into 3 months each that have different weather patterns. What are they? Well, let's talk about those different periods. The first period we can talk about is spring. Spring is the season between winter and summer. Sure, okay, so that's one way to define spring, but we're talking also about how is spring different? What is the weather like in spring? What happens during spring? Well, if you think about it, many flowers, many plants start to grow again, right? We can say that flowers Flowers bloom. Flowers start to grow again. Bloom means that the flowers start to grow out. They start to grow out and they have new life. It's interesting to think about spring because another word for spring also means to jump, right? So if you spring, you have a jump, right? So it's like thinking about life. Life jumps out in the spring. Especially after winter, well, we'll talk about in a second, everything is dead. But then in the spring, life springs out. Life jumps out. So that's a good way to remember spring. Let's move on to summer. Summer may be your favorite season because what do you do in the summertime? You can go to the beach, swim in the water. It's very warm. It's very hot outside, actually. Summer is the warmest. We can also say the hottest season of the year. It comes after spring. So first we have spring, then we have summer. Summer, it becomes hotter, right? The weather's very hot. The day is longer. And that's an important point. I mean, why do the seasons change? I mean, we can talk about that a little bit, but if you look at the earth, this would be the earth here. Maybe the sun's way far away, right? It's shining out like this. Well, the earth turns, right? Sometimes the earth is like this, so that the North Pole, this is the equator, I'm sorry, not very good artist, but the north part of the earth is closer to the sun in the summertime, so it's hotter. In the winter, it changes, it goes back, and now the northern part of the earth is far away from the sun, and so it's cold. So in summertime, that's what's going on. The earth is actually a little closer to the sun in terms of tilting. So, summer is the warmest season of the year. It comes after spring. Another 3 months, that earth starts to tilt back and it gets cooler. And then we have fall. Fall is the season between summer and winter. What happens in fall? We can see this picture here. You can see many apples on the tree. So in fall is when many plants bear fruit. And many other plants wheat will grow, rice will be ready. Farmers go out into their fields and they get the food from the plants because that is the time for the harvest season. Fall is really the harvest season. It's when farmers will go out and get the food from their fields, and we call that the harvest. Okay? And that, of course, occurs in the fall. And you can see that many trees will grow apples, pears, oranges, rice, wheat. All those things are ready to be harvested in the fall. And it's between summer and winter. So summer's over, winter is coming. And winter is here, right? Winter is here. Winter is the coldest season of the year. Very cold. Remember that diagram I showed you, right? Here's the earth. Now the top part of the earth is pointing away from the sun, which is way over here. Okay? So the sun is shining on the earth, but the earth is tilted, right? So, I'm sorry, it should be more like this, right? Okay? But the earth is tilted away, so now it's cold. We're not getting as much sunlight as we did in the summertime. So it's a very cold season of the year. It comes after fall. Very cold, and all the life dies, right? Most of the plant lives, it dies or it just goes to sleep, really. Because, don't worry, after winter, what happens? Spring will come back, right? So it makes a cycle. Okay. Let's talk about daylight. Daylight is very important when we talk about the seasons, as I told you a little bit before. In the summertime, we have the most daylight. In the wintertime, we have the least daylight. Again, that's because of the earth, the way that it moves as it spins. Daylight. Daylight is the light that comes from the sun during the day, of course, because it's daylight. We don't call it night light, right? We call it daylight. So daylight is the light that comes from the sun during the day. And like I said before, in the summertime, we have more daylight. In the wintertime, we have less daylight. That's important to remember. Similar. We have this word here, similar. Similar means almost alike. Not exactly alike, right? If you want to say something is 진짜 똑같아요, right? That's exactly alike. Exactly alike. But in this case, similar is not exactly alike. No, similar is almost alike. So, almost alike. Not 진짜 똑같아요, not exactly alike, right? But almost alike. It looks similar. So if you have these two twins here, looks like they had maybe a little argument and he's making up with his brother. They're not exactly alike. There's a little difference between them. So they are similar, but not exactly alike. They're almost alike. They're almost the same. Okay. The next we have is a pattern. A pattern is something that happens in a cycle. Remember, we just talked about the seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. What happens? It goes back to spring, and then it happens again. In every year, it happens the same way, and that follows a pattern. A pattern is something that happens in a cycle. So in other words, it repeats again and again. Also, we can take a look at shapes like these leaves here, and we can see that there's a pattern. Because this leaf is similar to this leaf, they have the same pattern. And we could say that these leaves grow in a very similar pattern so that it's like a cycle. They will grow every year in the same pattern, in the same shape. And also, they keep doing it in a cycle. Okay, so that is a pattern. Okay. We also see this word ripe. What season, remember what I told you about the seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter. What season is ripe associated with? Remember, ripe, if something is ripe, it's ready to eat. Before I told you about harvest, right? Harvest. This is the time when the farmers go out and they get the fruit from the trees. They get the rice or the wheat from the fields because those foods, those plants are ripe. They are ready to eat. And when does that happen? Do you remember? Of course, the harvest happens in the fall. So when food is ripe, usually in the fall, it's ready to eat. And farmers will go out and get the food, and that is the harvest. Okay? So if something is ripe, especially plant food, that means it's ready to eat. It's good for you too. Kiwi is very good. You don't want to eat a kiwi fruit when it's not ripe. Ugh, it's sour, right? When it's ripe, it's delicious, sweet and delicious.
Lesson 8. Seasons. Season. A season is any of the 4 main periods of the year. Spring. Spring is the season between winter and summer. Summer. Summer is the warmest season of the year. It comes after spring. Fall. Fall is the season between summer and winter. Winter. Winter is the coldest season of the year. It comes after fall. Daylight. Daylight is the light that comes from the sun during the day. Similar. Similar means almost alike. Pattern. A pattern is something that happens in a cycle. Ripe. If something is ripe, it is ready to eat.
But let's start with one of those things that you can see in the sky, especially at night. When you look up at the night sky, wow, there are so many of these things. So many points of light, right? Those are all stars. A star is a bright object, We can see it. Bright means it's light. It's giving off light. It's a bright object in the sky. There's so many stars in the night sky. And it's a bright object in the sky that makes its own light. A star is the only object that makes its own light. Why? Because stars are basically huge balls of gas that are burning and they're giving off light. As they burn, they give off light. And so we can see many stars in the night sky. There's so many of them. Our sun, during the daytime, can you see many stars? You can only see one star, and that is our sun. The sun is a star, but it's our star. It's a special star, so we call it the sun. It's the only star that we call the sun. The sun is the star closest to the earth, right? And especially when we're talking about the universe. There's so many stars out there, but our sun is the closest to the earth by far, right? Any other star is really far away. So far, we could never go there, okay? It was just so far away. The sun is the star closest to the earth. The sun, what does it do? It gives us light, it gives us warmth. So the sun gives us two things. One, it gives us warmth. It warms the earth to a temperature where we feel comfortable. It also gives us light, so we can see, especially during the daytime. So the sun gives us warmth and light. Okay, so the sun is the biggest thing we see in the daytime, right? That's the most impressive or the biggest object we see in the daytime sky. In the nighttime sky, the biggest thing we see, the most impressive thing we see is the moon. And here's the moon over here. Very impressive, very beautiful, isn't it, actually at night? The moon is the round object. It's round. It's shaped like a circle. Most objects in space are round. The sun is round. The moon is round. The earth is round. If we got away from the earth and looked back, it would be round. So all these objects in space are round. A few objects are not round, but most, if almost all objects in the sky are round. Planets, stars, moons, they're all round. The moon is a round object that moves around the earth. So the moon is moving around the earth. We'll see a diagram of that later, but it's moving around the earth. The earth doesn't move around the moon. No, the moon moves around the earth. Okay, let's continue. Planet. Now, the moon is not a planet. The earth is a planet. A planet is an object. Okay, we're talking about objects, right? We'll talk about objects that moves around the sun. So the moon is moving around the earth, but the earth is moving around the sun. How many planets are in the solar system? Do you know? There are 8 planets in our solar system. When I was a kid, we used to say there were 9 planets in the solar system. But recently, astronomers have said that Pluto, poor Pluto, he's not a planet anymore, okay? He's just a large object out there. So we've got Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. These are planets. Pluto, astronomers don't count as a planet anymore. Poor Pluto, right? He's Wangda, okay? He's not called a planet anymore. Astronomers just call him like a large object, but it's also moving around the sun. So planets are big, large bodies of gas or hard rock that are moving around the sun. Look at how big the sun is compared to all the planets, okay? Of course, this isn't to scale, but the sun is very big according to the different planets. Okay, so we have several planets. We have 8 planets in our solar system. Used to be 9, but scientists, they didn't like Pluto, so they said he's not a planet anymore. So we have 8 planets in our solar system. Now, we have this idea here, rotate. So before we said that the planets move around the sun, but the planets themselves are moving not around something, but they're moving by themselves around a pole. Rotate means to spin. So rotate means to spin like this. If I take this pen and I turn it like this, I am spinning the pen. It is revolving around in this direction. Day and night happen when the Earth rotates. We'll take a look at that. But let me teach you guys something here. Do you see this direction here? The Earth is rotating. So when we say rotate, what direction does the Earth rotate? It's important to take a look at. This motion here, okay, if it's going like this, we can talk about clockwise or counterclockwise. Take a look at this here. If we have a clock, 12 o'clock is here, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Now normally the clock hands move like this, don't they? They move in this direction. This direction, if something is spinning in this direction to the right in a circle, we call that clockwise. Clockwise. However, the Earth doesn't move or rotate in a clockwise direction. It rotates in the opposite direction. So clockwise, the opposite of clockwise is counter. Counterclockwise. And that's important to think about. If we are standing on the North Pole, we're standing on the North Pole, or we're looking down at the Earth is rotating in a counterclockwise direction. In other words, it's rotating, it's going around to the left in a circular motion. If it goes to the right in a circular motion, that's clockwise. This is counterclockwise. Okay? So the Earth is rotating in a counterclockwise direction. Rotate means to spin. It is spinning. This is what happens, day and night happen because the Earth is rotating. Okay. We talked a little bit, we've used this word quite a bit, object, right? We said the moon is an object, the sun is an object, planets are objects. An object is a thing that we can see and touch. It's matter. It's got some substance to it. This is important when we talk about an object in space. An object in space. Especially when we talk about outer space. When we talk about our solar system, our sun and the 8 planets are the solar system, right? But there's a lot of space between the planets. And our solar system, there's a lot of space between our star and the closest next star. So much space. So when scientists look up into space, they're looking for objects. They're looking for something that they can see. Not that they can touch, but if possible, if they could travel there, they could touch it. But most of space is empty space. Most of space is empty. Whoops, empty. Most of space is empty. There's nothing there. So when astronomers or scientists look into the sky, they are looking for objects. And objects can be planets, moons, stars, parts of planets, or very small, smaller objects than planets like Pluto. Pluto is not a planet because it's not big enough, okay? So they're looking for some type of object in the sky.
Lesson 9. The sky. Star. A star is a bright object in the sky that makes its own light. Sun. The sun is the star closest to the Earth. The sun gives us light and warmth. Moon. The moon is the round object that moves around the Earth. Planet. A planet is an object that moves around the sun. Rotate. Rotate means to spin. Day and night happen when the Earth rotates. Object. An object is a thing that we can see and touch.
Okay, but anyway, let's move on. Heat. What is heat? When we talk about heat, what is heat? Heat is a kind of energy. We've been talking a bit about in other lessons and in this book about energy. Heat is a type of energy. There are many kinds of energy, right? We can talk about electricity. We can talk about wind. We can talk about emotion, our bodies. Those are all different types of energy. Heat is just one more type of energy. But this special energy, this type of energy, makes things hot, right? So things get hot from heat. And as we can see, a fire is a good example of heat energy. If you put your hand close to the fire, not too close, but you will feel the heat. It's hot, and you will feel the heat from the fire. Okay. When we talk about energy, right? Energy, I just said that there are many types of energy. Heat is only one type of energy, but energy is power, right? Energy is power. Power, remember, is something that makes change, right? So power that makes things work, in other words, electricity makes your computer work, electricity makes your cell phone work, or it causes change. This is important. Energy causes change. Without energy, with no energy, there's no change. So if we want change in our lives, we have to use some type of energy. Otherwise, things will never change. So if we want change, we need energy. Okay, so where does energy come from? We use a lot of machines to get energy, right? We see an oil rig over here. We're getting oil, wind, and nuclear, and also solar power, right? We get energy from a lot of different places. And these are all pictures that show how we can get energy and also how energy is used, different types of energy as well. But of course, we're talking about heat. And when we talk about heat, we can use the word warm. Of course, warm means to make something hot. If you warm something. Here, warm is used as a verb. Warm can be a verb or it can be an adjective. But here we're using it as a verb because warm means to make, to do something. To make something hot means to warm it. So for example, if you want dinner, right? And your mom says, okay, let me warm up something for you. You don't want to eat pizza. Maybe there's pizza in the refrigerator, but it's cold. You don't want cold pizza. So mom says, let me warm up the pizza for you. If your body is cold, you want to warm your body next to a fire. So warm means to make something hot or hotter, right? Of course, these girls don't want to become hot, right? Maybe it's too hot. They just want to warm up, but it increases the temperature. So warm means to make something hot. Okay, what's one way we can get heat? We can get heat by rubbing things. Rub, again, is a verb, just like warm, because to do something. Rub means to move two things, in this case his hands, move two things together, but quickly, right? If you rub your hands together very quickly, right? You rub them together, go ahead and do that. Yeah, are you rubbing your hands? Do you feel warmth? Do you feel heat? Of course you do. You feel heat on the parts of your hands that are touching each other. By the way, a long, long time ago, this is how people made fire. They rubbed two pieces of wood together really fast, and it would cause so much heat that it would start to burn, and that's how they made fire. Okay, so to rub means to move two things together quickly, and you can make heat that way. It's very interesting. Try it out. But don't rub too hard, right? Just do it a little bit, okay? But you can feel it instantly. You can feel the heat starting to be generated. Okay, another place that we get heat is a stove. Be careful of the stove, okay? Stove, of course, is a noun. It's an object, right? A stove is a piece of kitchen equipment. It's a piece of equipment. It's a tool that you use. What do you use it for? You use it to cook food using heat. You can see the top of the stove here. By the way, that's an interesting point. The stove is only this part here. This is the stove. Stove top. The bottom part is an oven. Oven. So we open the door, we put things in the oven. We cook things on the stove on the top. So yeah, this is usually one piece of equipment, but there's two parts. The top part is the stove, the bottom part is the oven. They're both equipment that cook food using heat. You can put something here, the heat on the top of the stove. Don't touch this, it's too hot. You can put something up here and it will heat your food, or you can put something inside the oven and it will heat your food. So we have stove and we have oven, okay? This same piece of equipment. Stove is on top, oven is in the middle. They both use heat in order to cook food, because you don't want to eat cold chicken, right? You want hot chicken, right? You want your food to be hot. You don't want cold soup. You want to put it on the stove to make it hot so that you have hot soup. Okay. Also, what else can we talk about here? We have a lamp. A lamp is a device, piece of equipment, a tool that uses electricity to produce what? We want light. So a lamp, as this girl is using a lamp to do her homework, she's using a lamp. But you know, there's also heat coming off here. Not just light, but also heat is coming off the lamp. You have to be careful. Don't touch the lamp. It's hot too, right? So heat is also coming from the lamp.
Lesson 10. Heat. Heat. Heat is a kind of energy that makes things hot. Energy. Energy is power that makes things work or causes change. Warm. Warm means to make something hot. Rub. Rub means to move two things together quickly. Stove. A stove is a piece of kitchen equipment that cooks food using heat. Lamp. A lamp is a device that uses electricity to produce light.
First of all, let's talk about light. What is light? Light is the energy. We're talking a lot about energy in this book, aren't we? There are many different types of energy. Light is the energy that makes it possible to see things. So remember, energy is something that causes change, right? So energy, if we see with this energy, it allows us to see things. If we don't have light, right? There's no light, we can't see things. So light is energy that hits something, bounces back, and we can see it with our senses. So light is energy that makes it possible to see things. Without light, we cannot see. We need light to see. Okay. Dark is the opposite of light. It's the opposite. Light, pandero, dark, right? Dark means with no light or very little light. Sure, there's some light, but it's very little light. So it's dark in this alleyway. There's light, sure. We can see, but there's very little light. So it's dark. We say it's dark. Also, of course, if there's no light at all, everything's black, that's, of course, dark as well. So dark just doesn't mean just no light. It can also mean little light. Okay, so a couple of things. Sure, there might be a little bit of light, but it's still dark out, so we have to really look carefully to be able to see things. So light and dark. Okay, next we have shadow. What is a shadow? We can see a good picture here, right? This is the shadow of the boy right here. So a shadow is the dark place. This is dark, this is light. The shadow is the dark place here, made when an object, this boy is an object, blocks light. So he's blocking the light. The light is coming in this direction. It hits the boy and it stays on his head. It doesn't go through his head. It stays on his head. His head is blocking it, so it's blocking the light. Other light over here, it can go all the way down. It hits the ground and that's light. The light is not blocked. There's nothing blocking the light. Here, there's a boy blocking the light. He causes a shadow. He makes a shadow, and this, of course, is his shadow. So when something blocks light, it creates a shadow. A good word in English, we say it casts. He casts a shadow. He casts a shadow. To cast a shadow, that's what he's doing because he blocks the light. Okay. At night, it's very dark. The sun is gone. There's no sun. So we need light to see by. Many cities will put street lights in their cities. Street light, of course, is two words. Street, this is a street, and of course light, this is a light. So this is a street light. Street lights are lamps on the street. Very easy, right? Street and light. They are lamps here that are on the street that allow us to see the city streets at night. This is a street where people are walking, but many streets in the cities are places where people drive. It's dangerous to drive if you can't see, if there's no light. So cities will put lamps on the side of the streets so that drivers and people who are walking can see and be safe. So street lights make cities safe. They are lamps on the street. Next we have this word here, pass. Pass, in this case, is a verb. This is an interesting picture. Pass means to go through. So what's going on here? We have our light. Light is coming in this direction. This is light. It hits this prism. By the way, this is a prism. Prism. What happens is the light is passing through, but it's very interesting what happens to light when it passes through a prism. The light will hit here, it will change direction, and this prism will separate the light into many different colors. So sure, the light is passing through to go through. It's going through this piece of glass. It's going through, but when it passes through the glass is different from air. It's denser. It separates the light. And that's what happens. It passes through. On the other side, it comes out, and you can see all the different colors that light is made up of. So it's very fascinating, right? It's passing through, sure, but it's being split up. If we look at a window, light passes through a window, but it's not being separated by the angle of this glass. It's just going straight through. So light passes through a window very easily because a window is transparent. So to pass through just means to go through. Light passes through some things. Light doesn't pass through all things. Okay. Sunglasses. Here we have another two-part word. Sun is our first word. Glasses is the other word. I'm wearing glasses. Are these sunglasses? No, they aren't. Sunglasses are dark glasses. My glasses are not dark. These glasses are dark. These are sunglasses that protect your eyes from the sun. People wear sunglasses when they're outside. And sure, when I go outside, I change my glasses to sunglasses because you want to protect your eyes from the sun. Be careful. The sun can be dangerous to your eyes. Don't look at the sun, right? Even if you have sunglasses, don't look at the sun. But if you're outside, it's a very bright day, there's a lot of sunlight out, you might want to wear dark sunglasses or just sunglasses because they protect your eyes from the sun, which is important. Look out after your eyes. Be careful with your eyes. Okay. Where can we get light? Well, one place we can get light is from a candle, and this is a good picture of a candle. A candle is something, it's an object, that is burned. Burned. This flame is burning the candle, right? For light. We burn the candle because we want to have light. If we want more light, we burn more candles. Okay? Light will be coming from the candle. Also, sometimes candles smell good, but our main purpose is for light. We burn candles for light. So if the electricity in your house goes out and you don't have a flashlight, you can light a candle to look around. But be careful because it's burning. That's fire. Be careful with that. Joshim Hale. It's safer, of course, to use a flashlight. A flashlight is the same idea as a candle. We use it for light, but it's a small lamp that uses batteries. It uses electricity. Electricity is in the batteries, and we turn it on or off to get light. So a flashlight is safer than a candle. By the way, just so you know, in United Kingdom, in England, they don't say a flashlight, they call this a torch, which is interesting. And that's in the UK. In the United Kingdom, people from the United Kingdom will call it a torch. So if you go to England or Ireland or Scotland, don't call it a flashlight. They may not know what you mean. You can call it a torch instead. They understand that. But if you go to America, don't say you want a torch because a torch is a piece of wood that burns, right? In America. In the United Kingdom, a torch is this. In America, say it's a flashlight. Okay.
Lesson 11. Light. Light. Light is the energy that makes it possible to see things. Dark. Dark means with no or very little light. Shadow. A shadow is the dark place made when an object blocks light. Streetlight. A streetlight is a lamp on the street. Pass. Pass means to go through. Sunglasses. Sunglasses are dark glasses that protect your eyes from the sun. Candle. A candle is something that is burned for light. Flashlight. A flashlight is a small lamp that uses batteries.
Sound, of course, when we talk about sound, sound is the energy you can hear. I'm making energy with my mouth right now. You are hearing that energy with your ears. So sound is actually energy. That's very interesting to think about, isn't it? Sound is energy, just like electricity or heat is energy. Sound is also another kind of energy. And we can feel that sound. We can hear that sound. We can hear that energy. We can find out or we can detect that energy. How do we detect it? How do we feel that energy? How can we human beings, how do we know what that energy is, and how can we figure out what's going on? Because energy, the energy of sound, has to do with vibrating. Vibrate means to move back and forth quickly, right? Very quickly, like vibrating, right? So you're vibrating, right? Back and forth. That's a lot of energy. Now, I'm making my throat, inside my throat, I'm making my vocal cords, my vocal cords. My vocal cords are vibrating, and it's making the air coming out of my mouth vibrate also. Now, when we talk about vibrate, right, I was going like this, we can also see a video of vibrating. This is a different way, right? We're not talking about vocal cords here. Vocal cords are what I vibrate in my mouth to make you hear what I'm saying. But other things vibrate and make noise too. Let's take a look at a video. Now, this, of course, this tool is called a jackhammer. Oops, what am I doing here? Ignore that. Jackhammer. A jackhammer is the tool that he's using to break up the ground. Now let's take a look at this and listen carefully. See if you can hear the sound that the jackhammer makes. Right? Can you hear it? Okay. If I'm using it, right, that's really causing a lot of vibration, right? And the vibration is really needed to break up the ground or the cement, the asphalt of the street. And basically, of course, it makes a lot of vibration to do that, but that vibration is energy. It's creating a sound, and we can hear that sound. If we're in the city and there's a lot of construction going on, we can hear jackhammers. We hear that sound. It's a very common sound in the city. Okay, let's move on and talk about pitch. Now, of course, we're talking about sounds, right? But as you know, there are many different kinds of sounds, right? When we talk about sounds, we can talk about two things that to describe different sounds. One of those things is pitch. Pitch means how high or how low a sound is. So if we have a high sound, it's a very high pitched or we have a very low sound, right? So high or low. What is the sound? If you have a little puppy dog at home, right? He's going yip, 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 right? That's a high sound. When that puppy dog grows into a big dog, he goes ruff, 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 right? That's a low sound. So the vocal cords in a dog will change from a baby to a bigger dog, right? So it's interesting to think about pitch because we can describe sound by its pitch. Is it a high-pitched sound or a low-pitched sound? So with pitch, we can say high-pitched sound. This is our adjective to describe what kind of sound. And again, of course, we could say low-pitched sound. Oops, sorry. T-C-H-E-D. So high-pitched, low-pitched. What is the pitch of the sound? And we can use that word to describe specifically a little bit more detail about that sound. Is it a high pitch or a low pitch? Some people have voices that are high pitched. Some people have voices that are low pitched. Okay, we can talk about that using the word pitch. Okay, now, be careful. This is yell, right? I'm saying be careful because yell means to shout. In fact, they're both the same meaning. If you say don't yell, right? Be careful. Don't yell. You guys, I know you want to yell a lot when you're happy and you're having a good time, but don't yell inside. Don't shout in your classroom, right? Don't yell. Don't shout. Yell and shout are basically the same words. Don't yell in the classroom. Don't yell in the library, right? When you're at school or in a public place, many people are around. Don't yell. Don't shout. Go to the playground, okay? You can yell, shout, run around on the playground. But try not to yell or shout, especially when you're in a building, please, because other people don't like that, right? It's too loud of a sound. Okay, so yell means to shout. Let's take a look at a video of two kids who are going to shout. Why are they shouting? Usually when people shout, it's because they're upset or angry. You could also shout if you're happy, but what happens in this video? Let's take a look. Here we see a young boy, he's driving his car, he comes to a stop, right? Oh, and he gets hit by another boy. Now they are shouting, they are yelling. So, think they're done. Okay, so they are shouting or yelling at each other. This is a good expression to use when two people are fighting, right? They had some accident, now they're fighting, they are yelling at each other. Yelling at each other or shouting at each other. Usually when two people have an argument, they are yelling or shouting at each other. Okay. When people yell or shout, what's their voice, right? Their voice becomes very big, right? We're talking about volume. Volume is how loud or soft a sound is. Loud or soft. Loud or soft, right? So before we talked about pitch, pitch is high or low. Volume is another useful word to describe different sounds. We can talk about loud sounds or we can talk about soft sounds, okay? So volume describes how loud or soft a sound is. On most of you guys, nowadays, almost everybody has music players, right? And you have a volume control on your electronic device. In fact, on the computer right now, you're listening to me. There is a volume control device. You can increase the sound. You can make it louder, or you can decrease. You can decrease the sound, make it softer. So you can increase the sound or decrease the sound. You can make it softer. You can turn this dial up, turn the volume up, or turn the volume down. Those are good expressions too. Turn the volume up. Turn the volume up means turn it up. It's too soft. I can't hear it. Make it louder. Turn the volume down means it's too loud. Turn the volume down. Usually your parents will say, hey, turn the volume down if you're listening to music on your stereo or on your outside speakers, external speakers. Turn the volume down. Make the volume softer. If you're at your friend's house, your friend wants to hear your music, hey, turn the volume up, right? I want to hear it. So how loud or soft a sound is depends on the volume of that sound. So remember, there's two words we use to describe sound. Pitch, how high or low a sound is. Volume, how loud or soft a sound is. Pitch and volume are good words to use when we describe different sounds. Okay. Whisper. Now, when we're talking about whisper, are we talking about pitch or are we talking about volume? The definition of whisper means to speak quietly or softly. Quietly or softly, right? I am whispering right now. You might have to turn the volume up to hear me when I whisper, right? So whisper, we're talking about volume, right? Whisper means a volume that is down, the volume that is soft. A soft sound is a whispering. What is whispering the opposite of? We just learned a few seconds ago another word that is the opposite of whisper. So you can either, hey, yell at your friend, or you can whisper to your friend. Shh, don't tell anybody, right? That is whisper. This boy is whispering to the other boy. He better be whispering. If he's yelling, this boy will get very angry, right? So he's whispering. Whisper means to speak quietly or softly. Where should you whisper? It's better to whisper in class or especially in the library. Don't make a loud sound, make a soft sound. Whisper to your friends in the classroom or in the library if you're talking to each other. Much better than yelling. Okay. Now, we can talk about different instruments or different things that make sounds. Here we see a picture of a drum. Do you like playing a drum? You can play a drum. A drum is a musical instrument. that you can play. We play musical instruments. You play them. Play the drums. Can you play the drums? Do you like to play the drums? That you hit with your hands or a stick. So here we see a stick can hit the drum, but you can also use your hands, right? Some people from different countries or different cultures, they use their hands to hit the drums, and they're very good at it. It makes a very interesting and energetic, fun sound. Okay, another instrument that we can hear is a bell. A bell is a device. It can also be an instrument that makes a ringing sound. Ding, 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 ding. So here, listen to that sound. Ding, 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 ding. That's kind of a high-pitched sound. It's a loud sound because a bell's sound can travel very far, right? So usually when people want to get another person's attention, they go ding, 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 ding. High-pitched but loud sound, okay? Especially, but by the way, a big bell, right? Dong, dong, dong. That's a lower pitch sound, but it's also very, very loud. And people can hear it for a long ways away. Think of the bells in a church, right? That's a very loud sound. If you're standing close to it, well, you can't hear very well because the sound is so big, you can't hear anything else. Okay. We can talk about high. We've talked about that before. High means large in amount or degree. In this case, we're talking about degree. When we talk about sound, we don't really talk about the amount of sound. We talk about the degree of sound. Because we're not saying, wow, that's a lot of sound. We say, wow, that sound is, there's a very big sound. It's a degree. It's a high sound. So when you turn up the volume, you're turning up the degree of that sound. So when you turn up the volume of the sound to a high volume, you're talking about degree. You're not really talking about amount. You're talking more about degree. What is the degree of that sound? But we usually just say, and the volume is very high, or the volume is very low. Small in amount or degree. So the difference, of course, is big or small. High is large in amount or degree, and low is small in amount or degree. Okay.
Lesson 12. Sound. Sound. Sound is the energy that you can hear. Vibrate. Vibrate means to move back and forth quickly. Pitch. Pitch is how high or low a sound is. Yell. Yell means to shout. Volume. Volume is how loud or soft a sound is. Whisper. Whisper means to speak quietly or softly. Drum. A drum is a musical instrument that you hit with your hands or a stick. Bell. A bell is a device that makes a ringing sound. High. Large in amount or degree. Low. Small in amount or degree.
That's our first word, electricity. Electricity, right? It's a long word, right? But if we count how many sounds are in electricity, electricity. Wow, 5 sounds, right? Electric, City, right? We make a big sound on tr. Electricity. So, everybody, electricity. Okay. Electricity is energy. Like I said, we've been talking a lot about energy in this textbook, right? We've talked about, before we talked about heat. Heat is energy. Light is energy. We talked about sound. Sound is energy. This is all energy, right? But electricity is very powerful energy, right? Much more powerful than these other ones. Electricity gives computers and other machines power to work. Electricity is a very powerful form of energy. We need it and we use it every day. Okay, where do we get electricity from? We get electricity from a power plant. P, right? We have to practice the P sound. Power plant. Power plant. What is a power plant? A power plant is a building. It's a building. This building is a power plant. A building that produces. Produces, makes. Produces and makes, same word. So a power plant is a building that makes or produces electricity for many things for people. Many things? What things? Well, think about it. You use electricity for your computers, for your MP3 players, for your stereo set, for your cell phone, for the lights in your house. We use electricity for many, many things. Where do we get electricity? We get electricity from a power plant. Let's take a look at a power plant, a video of a power plant. Here is a power plant. This is actually a nuclear power plant. We can tell because of these structures right here. It is a nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plant. Now, it's making a lot of smoke, right? But don't worry, most of the smoke at an electricity power plant is actually steam. All of this smoke coming out is very hot water. Steam or hot water is used to produce electricity. So a lot of that water is so hot, it creates steam, and that steam comes off here. It's not really a lot of pollution. It looks bad, but it's not that bad because most of this is water vapor coming out of the power plant. But this is a typical example of a power plant. This is actually a nuclear power plant because you can tell by these structures here. Okay. Now, we're also looking at, in this lesson, fuel. What is fuel? Actually, there are many types of fuel, if you think about it. Wood is a fuel, a type of fuel. We use wood. Wood is kind of perhaps the oldest type of fuel that human beings have been using. We use wood to make fire. So we put fuel on the fire, we're talking about wood. What's a type of fuel that you use every day? Think about it. You probably use it 3 times a day, in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. That's right, it's food. Food is fuel for your body, okay? In this case, in this picture, fuel is gas that your mom or dad puts in the car, and that makes the car run. Fuel is something burned to make heat or power. So we burn wood to make fire, to make heat. We burn food in our bodies to give us power. We put gas in our cars. The engine burns that gas to make power. So our cars can go fast, right? So fuel is anything, something that we burn to make heat, to make it warm, or to make power in order to do something, right? So fuel, there's many kinds of fuel, and we use fuel a lot in our modern lives. Okay. Battery. Now, battery is not really fuel, right? Battery is a different type of thing. It's a storage device for what? What do you store in a battery, right? You store electricity in a battery because sometimes you go away, maybe there's not a power plant near you or there's no wires or electricity outlets near you. You go out into the mountains or you go out into nature away from your home. Where can you get electricity, right? You have your cell phone. Where do you get electricity from? Well, you use a battery. And these, of course, are very common types of batteries, but there are many, many different kinds of batteries. Lots of different shapes, lots of different sizes. In your mom or dad's car, there's a really big battery. That's the battery to get the engine going, right? In your cell phone, you have a smaller battery, but it's bigger than one of these batteries. Okay, so there are many types of batteries. Batteries, of course, store electricity. They keep electricity inside them, so when you need electricity, you can use it. You can carry it with you. Wire. A wire is a long, thin cable, very thin, that carries electricity. And if you look at the wire, there's really two parts to the wire. There's a metal part right there. This is the metal part of the wire. Remember we talked about metal a long time ago? Usually copper is used as the metal to carry electricity. And that's one part of the wire. The other part is right here. That's this part right here. That is plastic. Now the plastic is around the metal and that protects you, right? Because if it's just metal and you touch that metal and there's electricity going through it, right? That's very dangerous. You got to be careful. So that metal, right? Don't touch that metal. You are protected by plastic. So the plastic is a protection for you against the electricity. Also, you don't want the metal touching each other. If two electric wires touch each other, then it's really bad and your computer might break, right? You might have a fire also. So like I said before, electricity is a very powerful type of energy. So we got to be careful with it. So we use wires to carry electricity from one place to another. Let's take a look here. Okay, outlet. Outlet is the place where the wire comes to. We just saw wire carries electricity from the power plant to your house, and there's a wire behind this that goes to the power plant. So that's what wires do, and the wire comes to a stop and end right here in the outlet. So an outlet is a place on a wall for electricity. And this is how electricity comes from the power plant to your house along a wire. Okay? Okay, so we just saw the outlet, but what do we put in the outlet? We put a cord in the outlet. And you remember on the outlet you saw those two holes? Well, that's where you put the plug. This is actually what we call a plug. It's part of a cord. The plug, you plug the cord into the outlet. Plug it into. Plug, it's a noun, but we can also use it as a verb. Plug it into the outlet. Plug it in or plug it into the outlet, then you get power. Then you plug this other side into your computer. Wow, you got power on your computer. So, a cord is a cable. This is the cable. It's like a wire too. There's wire inside there. It is used to connect machines to electricity. So this part you put in your computer, this part you put in your outlet, and now you have connected your machine, your computer, your MP3 player, your cell phone, to electricity, okay? So that you can use it or you can recharge the battery, okay? But you need to connect it to electricity. Okay, now like I said before, be careful, right? This little boy is in danger, right? This, of course, is a cord used to jumpstart a car's battery. There's a lot of electricity runs through here, right? This is negative and this is positive. He should not touch these together, right? That's very dangerous. Dangerous. Dangerous means harmful and unsafe. It's not safe to play with electricity. Do not play with electricity. Just use electricity properly because it could be very dangerous. Like I said before, electricity is an energy. It's very powerful energy. It's one of the most powerful energies we've been talking about in this book. So you have to be very careful with electricity because it is dangerous. Okay.
Lesson 13. Electricity. Electricity. Electricity is energy that gives computers and other machines power to work. Power plant. A power plant is a building that produces electricity for many things or people. Fuel. Fuel is something burned to make heat or power. Battery. A battery is an object that stores electricity. Wire. A wire is a long, thin cable that carries electricity. Outlet. An outlet is a place on a wall for electricity. Cord. A cord is a cable used to connect machines to electricity. Dangerous. Dangerous means harmful and unsafe.
First, we're going to talk about motion, because that is our unit title, motion. What exactly is motion, right? Motion is the act, the action, the physical thing that you're doing, the act of moving. So you move from one place to another place. The act of moving, that is motion, okay? Speed. Now, when we talk about motion, we can talk about different ways to move, right? Movement can be fast, it can be slow, okay? It can have lots of different directions, right? There can be different reasons for motion, but right now we're talking about speed. Speed is how fast something moves. So like I said, something can move fast or it can move slow, right? Speed, when we talk about fast or slow, we're talking about what is the speed of the object, whatever is moving. Something is moving, what is the speed of that object? How fast is it moving? If we see a car, wow, that looks like it's moving very fast, right? It's moving very fast. It's hard to see it, right? Because it's moving so quickly. It has a lot of speed. It has a lot of speed. Now, when we talk about motion, if an object, if one thing is going to move from here, it's going to move there, there has to be some force pushing it. Force is power, right? Power. I'm using my power of my arm to move this from here to there. I'm using force. I don't have to use a lot of force. It's a very light pen. But if you want to move heavy objects, you need a lot of force. You need a lot of power. Power that produces a change in a movement. And it's interesting to notice that. A change in a movement. So remember, movement isn't just stop, move, stop. Movement can also be in one direction. And if something is already moving, and a power of force changes that motion, changes the direction, that is also a power or force that makes something change direction. A push or a pull is a force. So we have a push or a pull. Two types of forces. A push, we'll talk about these of course later, but a push or a pull are the two types of forces that act upon objects. It makes those objects move. We are either pushing them or we're pulling them. We'll talk about these words later. Let's take a look at the video though. We're taking a look at a crane. This is a crane, and you can see at the top of the crane up here, you see this part is moving, and that's the part that holds the steel beam. They're building a building here, and this part, they need that part in a certain place on the building, so the crane will move it this way, right? It'll pull it towards the crane. It will push it out away from the crane. But you know what? This can also pull up and down. So they can make these cables, they can pull the object up, or they can let it go down, and they can move it up and down. So a crane, of course, they can move things away, they can pull things close, but they can also lift things and drop things. So they can move objects around where they need it on this building. So that's a good example of the forces that you use to make something move, to put something into motion. Now, a very important force, gravity, is a force, right? Gravity is a force. That's what it says right here. It's a type of force, a type of force. So we talked about forces, right? Force is the power to move something. Gravity is a very important force that pulls things to the ground, right? You see this boy, wow, he's very interesting. He's diving into the water. Hopefully there's water down here. But he's going down, right? This arrow is pointing down because gravity pulls things to the ground. Let's take a look at that. Now, all these kids here are lined up. They are all lined up on the edge of the pool. They are going to jump into the pool. Gravity is the force that pulls them down. There they go. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're all going in a line. Okay? They're having fun. But basically, gravity is the force that pulls people. Oh, he missed out. He's like, well, what happened? Okay, jump in. Okay, so he jumps in the air. Gravity pulls him down. Gravity is very important. Obviously, gravity is the force that's keeping us all on the ground. If we didn't have gravity, we would all float up into the air, right? So gravity is a force or a power that is always there. It's always pulling us to the earth, and it's keeping us on the ground. Without gravity, we would just float off, right? That would be very, very dangerous and very strange. So we need gravity. Gravity is something that's very important, obviously, in our lives. Now, we've talked about pull a little bit, right? I said gravity pulls us to the ground. We also talked about pull and push are the two major forces. Here we have pull. Pull is a force that moves things closer to you. Close, nearby. Yappe, right? Closer to you. So if I take this pen and I pull it to me, I'm bringing the pen closer to me. Now, it's interesting, when we pull something with us, right, we can pull it close to us and it stops. But if we keep moving, right, and we keep pulling, that's the way that we can bring something from here to over there. We pull it along with us. Let's take a look at a video of that. See, this man, he's got his two children here, and he's pulling them in the snow. Looks like fun, right? So basically, he's pulling them, but he keeps walking, right? So although he keeps pulling them closer, he keeps moving away, so it's a constant action. And he's pulling these kids across the snow. So pulling something across the snow, he's pulling them towards him, but he doesn't pull and stop, he keeps moving. So he's pulling them from one place to another. And of course, you could also say, you know, pull, stop, that's okay too. But if you want to move something from one place to a faraway place, well, sure, you can pull it along with you. Pull it along behind you. Okay, now, pull is one of the forces that's bringing something closer to you. The opposite, pandero, the opposite force of pull is push. Push is a force that moves things away from you. So before we saw pull, closer to you, push is away from you. You're pushing something away. So it's another force that you use to push away from you. This girl is helping these two boys on their skateboard, right? They're on a skateboard here, a skateboard. And the girl is pushing them away from her. Let's take a look at a video of this. Now, this is a very common scene, right? You have a swing set. This is a swing a swing set, right? This boy is on a swing. Mom and dad are doing what? They are pushing their children away, pushing them away. Of course, gravity is a force that pulls them back down. So there's two forces we can see in this video. One is push away from human beings. The other force from gravity from the earth is pulling them back down to the ground. And so we have forces, we have two forces. One is pushing away, the other force is pulling back. The one that's pushing away is made by people. People are making that force, and the other force is made by the earth, that's gravity, pulls it back. So we have the constant motion back and forth. We're actually looking at two forces in this video. There are two forces. Okay, now when we talk about motion, we can talk about the direction of something. Oops, direction, that's supposed to be a C, okay? Direction. So we talk about the direction of the motion. Which way is it going? Which way is that object going? That is the direction. Now, something can go in a straight direction. Straight means not bent. But another way to say that is that there's no change in direction. It starts here, A, starts at point A, and finishes at point B, and it goes directly from A to B. There's no change in direction. It's a straight shot, a straight line. There's no change in direction. It goes directly from point A to point B, not bent. Bent would be like, you know, this. That's bent, okay? That would be bent. There's no bend. It's straight, straight line, not bent. There's no bend in the direction. The direction stays the same the whole time. There's no change in direction. The direction stays the same. It is going straight. That's the direction. Now, of course, we can talk about straight is not bent. Curve is like a bent. Curved. Curved means not straight, okay? So we had like opposites, right? Straight means not bent. Curved means not straight. So curved, of course, means bent. Okay? And forming a curve. You see this train, now here is point A, here is point B, right? It's not a straight line. A straight line would be like this. That's a straight line. But this is not a straight line. This is a curve, right? It's curving around. It's bent. The train tracks are bent. It's forming a curve. So we can say it's a curve or it is curved. Curved is adjective. Curve without D, that's a noun. So we say there's a curve in the tracks. Go around the curve, that's a noun. If we say the tracks are curved, that's an adjective, okay? So curved means not straight, and forming a curve, that's our noun right there. Okay.
Lesson 14. Motion. Motion. Motion is the act of moving. Speed. Speed is how fast something moves. Force. A power that produces a change in a movement. A push or a pull is a force. Gravity. Gravity is a force that pulls things to the ground. Pull. Pull is a force that moves things closer to you. Push. Push is a force that moves things away from you. Straight. Straight means not bent. Curved. Curved means not straight and forming a curve.
Our first word, of course, is magnet, right? That's what we're talking about. A magnet. A magnet is a piece of metal. It's a piece of metal, like this piece of metal. Some magnets are shaped like this, that attracts iron or steel. So some magnets are shaped like this. By the way, what shape do we call this? What is this shape? This shape looks like the shoe that a horse wears. So we call this a horseshoe. This is a horseshoe shape. A horseshoe shape. Because a horse, you know, we make a foot or a shoe for the horse. The foot of the horse is like this, so that is the shape of a horseshoe. Some magnets are shaped like this, but many other magnets are just shaped like this. And this is a bar shape. Bar. So magnets have horseshoe shapes, very common, and they also have bar shapes, right? And then this would be, see, this one is north, this one is south. So one part here, this might be north, and this would be south. We'll talk about that later. Okay, but a magnet is a piece of metal in this shape or this shape that attracts iron or steel to it. Iron is what attracts it to. Steel is something that human beings make from iron. So they both have iron, and it attracts it. You can see all these little paper clips. These, of course, are paper clips. Paper clips are made of steel. They have iron in them, and they are attracted to the magnet. Okay, so that's very interesting. We'll talk about attract too. So we're talking about magnets in this unit. Okay, remember on the previous slide we were talking about magnets, and I pointed out North Pole and South Pole. Pole is a very important thing to think about when we talk about magnets. And this is a good picture showing the red part is the North Pole and the south part, the blue part, is the South Pole. Where do we also hear about poles, right? If you think about the Earth also has a North Pole and a South Pole, doesn't it? So the North Pole is up here, the South Pole is down here. That's when people first found out or discovered magnets. And what they found was a force or energy that's called magnetism. 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 So a long, long time ago, actually thousands of years ago, people found out that iron would turn, if you put it in water, a small piece of iron, if you put it in water, it would turn a certain way. Of course, it was pointing north. It would point north. So a pole is one of the two ends of a magnet. Some pieces of iron were actually, they were magnets, and they would point north. It's very interesting when we look at magnetism. The force or the energy in a magnet is always flowing from the north to the south. So if you can see it, we can't see it, but the energy or the force is going like this, okay? And there's also some going, but that gets lost, right? It's going, oh, the wrong way, okay? But it's the north is emitting the magnetism, the force, and the south is attracting it. It's picking it up. We'll talk about that some more. But whether it's a horseshoe shape or a bar shape, that's the way that the force works. So a pole is one of the two ends of a magnet, and if you think about it, the Earth is a magnet. So we also have a North Pole and a South Pole on the Earth. But North Pole and South Pole, that tells us which way the magnet is pointing. And that's how people a long time ago could find out, oh, that way is north. Okay, so it's very interesting. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about attracted, right? When the small piece of iron, it points north because it's attracted to that way, right? The energy is flowing from the north part of the magnet to the south part of the magnet. So when we see this, the north part is attracted to the south part because the magnetism, the force is coming from the north and it's picked up by the south. So that means there's a force of attraction. Attract means to pull towards something. So if these two magnets, these are bar magnets, bar-shaped magnets, if you put them north side to south side, they will pull towards each other. They will attract each other. And that's very interesting. We have a video of this. It's a very interesting video to watch. So let's take a look. Here we have a pile of iron or steel pieces, right? What are they? They're screws, right? These are screws. We use those with the screwdriver to make things out of wood. But they're made out of iron. There's screws and there's other pieces also here, but mostly screws. What happens if we put a magnet down here? What's going to happen? Well, as we can see, here comes the magnet, right? Whoa, and it stops because those pieces of steel attract the magnet, and the magnet can pull up all those pieces of steel because of magnetism. Here it comes back down, boom, right? Okay, but those pieces of metal are stuck to the magnet. They are stuck to the magnet because of attraction. They are stuck to. They are stuck to, or of course you would say stick to for the present tense, stick to. So they stick to the magnet. They are stuck to the magnet because of the attraction between the force that's going through. By the way, if this is the north and this is the south, that force, it creates a very strong force. It's much stronger in a horseshoe shape than it is in a bar shape. There's still a force there, but this shape creates a much stronger force so it can pick up more metal. And that's what's going on there. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, so we just saw the magnet attracting metal, but we can also see that magnets can also repel each other, push away. Remember, the magnetism force is coming out of the north end. It's coming out of the north end. So if we turn the bar magnets so that north meets north, what's happening? Well, the force is pushing against each other, right? The magnetism is coming out, but it's coming out and meeting head on. It's like crashing, right? And they don't like each other. They're pushing, they're repelling each other. Repel means to push away. So this is pushing, so they don't attract each other, they repel each other. So they go away from each other. And that's interesting to note too, that these two sides, they don't like each other, so they will be pushing away from each other. This is an experiment you can try. If you have two magnets, right? Try that out. Put the north end of the magnet against the north end of another magnet. You can push them around on the table. They won't touch, but they're repelling each other. They're pushing away from each other. So that's very interesting force or very interesting feature of magnets. Especially with bar magnets, you can do that. Okay, we've talked a little bit about the types of things that magnets attract. One thing we talked about was iron. Iron is a metal, right? This is a hunk of iron ore, right? This is raw iron that you find in the ground. This is a metal that is used, of course, to make many things. Iron is a heavy metal, but it's a hard metal, right? And we can shape it. Of course, a long time ago, they used to make spears and arrowheads out of it. For weapons, it was used primarily. Also for shields. It's a hard, useful metal. But one thing about iron that's very interesting when we talk about magnets is the atoms. Very, very small pieces of the iron. The atoms inside the iron, when you put a magnet near the iron, the atoms will all change direction and point towards the magnet. In iron, this is very common. Actually, magnets exert the same type of force, the same type of attraction on everything, but iron has a particular feature of it is that it's very easily to change the direction of the atoms in iron. Other things, they don't change, the force is not that strong, so other things are not attracted to metal, like our bodies aren't attracted to magnets, or wood isn't attracted to magnets. But in iron, it's very strongly attracted to magnets, as we saw before, right? So iron is one substance that is attracted by magnetism or the force of the magnet, and also steel, because steel is a kind of metal that is strong and has iron in it, right? Before I said, human beings, we used iron to make weapons and shields and many tools, but then we found out how to use iron in a stronger way and to make it with very much hotter temperatures, and that is steel. Once we learned how to make steel, we stopped using iron so much. But steel still has iron in it, right? There's still a little bit of iron in it. So if there is iron inside of it, those atoms are still being changed direction. Those atoms still change direction, and they're being attracted by the magnet. So the magnet is still attracting steel because there is iron in steel.
Lesson 15. Magnets. Magnet. A magnet is a piece of metal that attracts iron or steel. Pole. A pole is one of the two ends of a magnet. Attract. Attract means to pull toward. Repel. Repel means to push away. Iron. Iron is a metal that is used to make many things. Steel. Steel is a kind of metal that is strong and has iron in it.